doctor is in. Hey, Dr. Keith.
Hey, Ricky.
What show are we on? Where
That's
are we?
good,
What
good,
are we
because
doing?
that's what happens when you don't have any
On
dinner.
first.
I'm on third, and I'm going home. Let me say it again, Ricky. I'm
The
glad
doc-
you're here,
You're
and I'm
glad we're
glad to
here.
be on the doctor's ends.
I know it's a different show for us, Dr. Keith, right?
Yeah.
And we have our beautiful, beautiful friend Dee Manuel here today. And Dr. Mo is not here with us today. And but we are, June is Pride Month, and we have much to talk about Pride. We're actually going to do the Pride Parade in New York on Sunday. If you're in the New York area, come visit. Haley's going to be there. But we wanted to bring up this topic with, first of all, our beautiful Dee, and I want you to tell your story. And then Dr. Keith and I have been talking a lot about just the impact of breast cancer and prostate cancer on our LGBTQ, IA community, and how we have to do more to support and help people understand what they're up against and understand their risks. So let's talk about it all. You ready?
Let's do it.
And I'm in Jamaica. I
Hey,
will admit I'm on vacation. I'm like my
see,
brain zoned out a little bit, but trying to pull it back together a little bit. But Dee, so tell your story, because I think it's so relevant to so many people and so inspiring and uplifting and freeing.
Oh, thank
That you're
you.
gonna
So
free some people today in your story.
let's free some people. So, I like to call myself the queen of pivoting, right? The queen of reinvention. And, Ricky has heard this story before, but I was diagnosed the first time at the age of 35 with stage 2 endometrial carcinoma. And during that time, it was just a really stressful time in my life because I had a lot of secrets that I was holding on to and things that I was just afraid to step into and be my authentic self, right? But I got this divine tap on the shoulder from breast cancer, and one would have thought it would have been enough for me to say, okay, life is too short, but it didn't. So in 2008, when I was 38, it came back. I got a second divine tap on the shoulder. And this time it was my nurse who got my attention. And she said, Dee, you need to do something about the stress in your life. Now, I don't know how this lady knew I was stressed, guys, because I hadn't told her or anyone else about the things that I was holding on to and the secrets that I was holding on to because I was too afraid, right? I was in a marriage that I was severely unhappy in, but I was afraid to leave because I didn't want to hurt my then husband because I knew how much he cared for me, right? But this second divine tap on the shoulder when she said you need to reduce the stress in your life, I'm like, okay, first of all, how do you do that? Like, how do you reduce stress? Isn't everybody stressed? That was my thought process, right? Like, I'm not special. Everybody is stressed
Right,
about
right. Who had
something.
time for stress, right? I say, what is stress? Who has time for stress? Give me a break, right?
Exactly. But I got online because the first time I did all the things the doctors advised me to do. The first time at 35, I had a lumpectomy. I went through chemotherapy. I went through radiation. And I went through another year of chemo treatment with the drug Herceptin because it was reported to keep cancer in remission. Well, my cancer came back, right? And so at that point, it was like, okay, if I've done everything the doctors have told me to do, maybe it's time for me to figure out how to help myself. And when she told me that I needed to reduce my stress, I'm like, okay, I got online and I started Googling how do I reduce stress? Right. And so
What a
um
concept, right? What a concept.
right, because I don't even know what stress looked like. And for those of you who may not even realize you're stressed,
Right.
your sleep is interrupted. You will find that there is more tension in your body. You kind of sit with your shoulders up to your ears, your teeth are clenched, your tongue is at the roof of your mouth, your fists are balled up, you sleep balled up in the fetal position. Those are all signs of stress that I didn't know, right? And I was exhibiting all of them. I was just like, okay. So then I had to start looking at, okay, what areas of my life am I stressed? And I got myself a coach. And my coach said to me, so what is it going to do? What is it going to take for you to advocate for your own happiness, right? I hear you talking about your kids. I hear you talking about your husband. I hear you talking about your mama, but what about you, right? And that's, again, nobody had ever asked me about me. And as women, a lot of women, we are taught and raised to put everybody else first, right?
Yep.
Like we're the
Yep.
caregivers. You got to take care of the kids. You got to take care of the home. You got to take care of your husband. You got to take care of everything else. And you're working a job. You're a mom. All the things, right? So I started looking at the areas in my life where I was stressed out. And a big proponent of that was I was hiding my sexuality, right? I was afraid to acknowledge that I was a lesbian because my mama was a Bible toting scripture quoting Christian, may she rest in peace. And I already
Yeah, she
knew.
said that. You see, Bible toting, Christian quote. See, and boy, it came right roll quick, didn't it?
Yes, honey,
Father's
she
minister,
was.
so I know what you're talking about.
I know you do, especially down here in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm.
I finally got the courage to ask for a divorce, right? I came out and acknowledged to my husband that, hey, listen, I'm hiding something. And the pain of hiding it is too much. It had become too much. Now he reacted exactly the way I thought he was going to react. And so the thing that I want to really drive home here is how long, Ricky, it took me to forgive myself. So I was still carrying the weight of that secret, even after I liberated myself, right? Even after it caused strife between me and my mom. I wish I could say that it didn't, that, she embraced me with open arms and was like, oh, my baby. No, that didn't happen. She was like, you know where I stand on this. It's not of God. I believe this is the reason you keep getting cancer because you're living against God. And like, it
Really
was,
said that?
she said that to me. She said, I was living against God, and this is why I was sick. I'll never forget that day. I was at work when she said that to me, and I remember just bawling and coworkers trying to console me. And that's not true. But I didn't know that wasn't true. Because again, I had been raised to believe that basically I was an abomination, right? So it was really hard to accept myself when I have my own mama telling me, this is why you keep getting sick.
And how old were you then, Dee?
I was about 40, I believe. So it was
So
a couple
you're
of years
like
after
40
my
years
second,
into denying
into
your
denying who I was. And I wish I could say that I always knew, but I didn't, right? I I knew that I didn't enjoy intimacy with men, but everybody I was talking to was complaining about intimacy with men. Right? So, okay, so maybe this is just the way the cookie crumbles, right? Like this is what intimacy is. And I remember talking even before I got married. I remember like being afraid to say yes, even when I thought he was going to propose, right? I was like, ooh, I told my best friend, I was like, I really think he's getting ready to propose, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. Her mom, my older girlfriend, all of these ladies that I looked to for wisdom were like, oh, you better marry that man. That's a good man. He's going to take care of you. He's going to take care of your son, and the whole nine. And so I'm looking at these ladies because I'm thinking they have more knowledge than I do. They've been here longer. So maybe they know something I don't know. And so I went through with the marriage, and I was married 10 years, no, 7 years, I'm sorry, before I got my first diagnosis. And then it was 10 years when I got the second diagnosis, right? So I go through this thing with my mom that it causes this big rift in our relationship. I've disappointed my then husband, but it was my son who validated me. My son at the time was about 16 years old. And he said, you know, Mom, I just want you to be happy. And it was like, if my son can see me and know that I've acknowledged who I am, and all he's known is Mom has been married for all these years, right? And she's been married to a man, but now Mom is saying, hey, I like women. If my 16-year-old son can look at me and say, I just want you to be happy, I stopped caring about what everybody else said. Like, that was the validation I needed from my own kid,
Yeah.
right? Because I was really concerned about what my coming out was going to do to my kids, right? But what I learned is children are resilient. And that I also learned that I couldn't be a decent mom when I was unhappy. I was irritable all the time. I was on edge all the time. Like, you can't be your best self for anybody else when you're not happy.
Yeah.
Right. And so I got that second divine tap on the shoulder, Ricky. And I like to say I blew up my life. I quit a job that was paying really well, but I was stressed out there. So I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, mind you, I'm quitting a job and I'm going into being single with 2 kids and taking a pay cut and all the things, right? I'm like, hey, I'm stepping out on faith. I'm just going to trust that God's got me, right? Despite what my mama is saying, I'm going to trust that God's got me. And I was so afraid of everything that I thought I was going to lose, right? Friends, family. I thought I would be judged. I thought I would be shunned and all these things. And I wish I could tell you that I didn't lose some people. I did. But everything that I gained made it worth it, right? Because that's when the doors really started to open up for me and people really started to embrace me. And once I was happy, I was a better mom. I was a better daughter. I was a better friend. I was a better sister. I was a better everything, because now I'm living as my authentic self and I'm liberated and I'm not trying to please everybody else. And I realized that my happiness was an inside job and I had to start with self first.
Happiness is an inside job. I love
Happiness
that.
is an inside job.
Well, so my story is similar, but not similar, but, I quit my life and started a new one too. And I didn't, I mean, I was living with a man and I do love men. I have a new husband, but I was not being my authentic self, even within my marriage and my family. And so I know I can only imagine the balls it takes for you to do that, because I know the balls I took for me to do it, and it was way harder for you because you changed, everything about yourself. But I think that cancer freed me. Cancer freed me from being miserable. And that's crazy. Like, yeah, Ricky, you're gonna die, but that fear of death, or not fear, or acknowledgement of death, took me out of a bad situation, and it freed me.
Absolutely. It was the same. It liberated me, right? I'm always telling people, I am not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I'm glad I got breast cancer.
Right.
But I'm really happy with everything that it left in its wake, right? Even the scars, because they remind me of the hard choices that I made and how I got my life back, right? Like, yeah, it was definitely liberating.
What was your
Cancer-free.
inside out quote again? I didn't get that. I forgot. You said something about from the inside out.
Your job is an
I don't know
inside.
what I said.
It's
Oh, it's inside. Your happiness is an inside job.
Happiness is an inside job.
I love that.
And being authentic, not just because to Ricky's point, I wasn't being authentic and living and owning my sexuality, but there are a lot of people who are not living as their authentic selves because they're afraid to start over, right? You think you're too old, or you think you're too young to do the things that you want to do, or you're too afraid of disappointing someone else. or you're too afraid that it won't work out. But here's the thing, clarity comes from taking action, right? We can sit there and think about a thing all day long, but until we start taking action and be the director of our lives and stop waiting on situations and the stars to align before we step out on faith. Because here's the thing, to trust God is to trust yourself,
Yeah.
right? To trust God is to trust yourself. And so I can't be afraid and say, I trust God. Like I can't do both, in my opinion. Now that's just one Black woman's opinion. But I feel like if I'm saying I trust God, I have to step out and feel the fear and do it anyway, knowing that God has got me. And the opportunities that have come for me ever since I started living as my authentic self, like everything got better. Right. I'm married to an amazing woman. Hey, baby, and just in case she's watching, I'm married to an amazing woman now. I always think also, was it a precursor, right? Because my daughter ultimately ended up being or is bisexual, right? And if I believe that me living as my authentic self gave her the courage to live as
Courage and
her
the freedom
authentic self,
to do that.
right?
Yes.
And I wouldn't have wanted her to live in that box, that bubble that I had placed myself in, because it was awful.
Yeah. Amazing, 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 amazing. But I know, people say, would you trade your cancer experience? I mean, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I hope that people find their peace, because it's non-negotiable, without being sick like we were. But I think it was liberating. Whoa, 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 whoa.
I
Everything.
So
love that.
There's
Don't wait for anybody watching. I love what Ricky just said. Don't wait on a catastrophic illness to live your life,
to live your life, to
right?
live your truth, live your truth, live your peace.
To live your truth. And I'm not saying divorce is the answer for everybody, but if you're in a marriage and the marriage is not a happy one, it's time to have this conversation. It's time to communicate, right? Like maybe divorce isn't the answer. Maybe we go get some counseling together. But let's not just stay stuck. If you're in a career that you're unhappy in, step into your purpose. Live the life that you know that God has for you. I don't believe God created any of us to play small. I don't believe God created any of us to
No.
shrink, right? That we are meant to live big, bold lives to glorify God. That's again just what I believe.
Yeah.
number two, step into your purpose.
Step into your purpose. And to Dr. Crawford's, I want to piggyback off of that and add, I believe we are purpose. I heard something that I thought was really profound, and it said, human beings are the only ones who get to choose what we want to be, right? We're the only species who gets to choose. So why, when we have the gift of choice, would you settle for anything less than something that lights you up? Whether that's a relationship, a career, a friendship, a business, it should light you up.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard for so many people. We've been talking to so many young people with cancer, and it's so disheartening because they haven't found that purpose yet, and they're being stricken dealing with this disease, but I think that, I didn't find what lit me up until I had like sick. Do you know what I mean? I've always loved my career. I've loved my work that I've done as a marketing person, but still, I found my purpose in this God work. So it's a
Yeah,
whole different ballgame
same,
for what work looks like, right?
same. I found my purpose in serving other ladies who are coming on this journey behind us, right? And it is the most fulfilling work I've ever done. And so for anybody watching, I am a breast cancer recovery strategist. And what that means is I help you make the rest of your life the best of your life. And to that end, I created a new program for ladies who are wanting to share their stories, for impact and advocacy, right? Like, let this diagnosis be for something. Again, I believe it's for us to give God the glory. Like, look at what God brought me through, right? And we can't do that if we're not opening our mouths and sharing our stories.
Yep. I love that title, a breast cancer recovery strategist.
Let's strategize how we gonna make the rest of our lives the best of our lives, right? Like, no more settling, no more shrinking, no more playing small. Like, really, again, finding the thing that's going to light you up and nurture it.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying you have to blow up your life like I did, but really sit and give it some thought about how you want the rest of your life to look, especially if you've been challenged with something as traumatic as breast cancer or prostate cancer or any other illness. Like, don't wait. Life is short. That's what it taught me. It really taught me
Don't
that
wait till
life
you
is.
can't do it. Don't wait till you can't do it.
Yes.
You know,
That
once you
is,
do it,
I
yeah,
love that. Don't wait until you can't do it,
can't choose.
because failure will always feel better than regret.
I love that. So Dr. Keith, Dee kind of, enlightened us on the emotional toil that she went through to basically release herself from a life that may have caused the stress that caused her cancer. Who knows, right? But now we're seeing so much happening in the queer community.
Yep.
With physical things. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because we're seeing people before they can even get to this emotional epiphany that you had. What's happening in this community? I know Dr. Keith's been working on seeing a lot in the prostate space, but what are you seeing?
Well, I wanted to step back and say that for the audience to understand that Touch and Finn, we want you to be your unapologetically you. That's what we want you to be.
Yeah.
We want to bring awareness to cancers and for you to get the best care that you possibly can. So you need to be your unapologetically you.
Yeah.
And then add on identifying that purpose. Now, what's coming up is there's the stress. There's a tendency to kind of group the LGBTQ community together and as one. And what you have are groups that are together, but then there are groups that are double marginalized. And those double marginalized in the transgender space are under a tremendous amount of stress. Matter of fact, CDC came out with a report stating that the transgender population have a tremendous amount of loneliness and depression in that space. And so, because you're double marginalized, no matter what, at the end of the day, you're Black. Now, you're Black, whether it's in the cis population or in the trans population. Except for in this case, you may not have any support. So what's interesting is this, in the breast space and in the prostate cancer space, the treatments that are used are treatments that influence hormones, your sex hormones. So an interesting point that a lot of people don't talk about is, if you are a trans woman, will you get prostate cancer? Now, interestingly, what is unknown to an extent, that if you are a trans man, will you get breast cancer?
Are you,
And
Misty, are you seeing this?
Mhm.
you see, and so these folks are out there, but there's no one talking about it.
Right.
You're seeing it, but we're turning the light on in the room. And then if you're Black, you got 2 hits. Now, what's interesting about the prostate cancer space, I mean, in this case, trans women, I may have made a mistake and said trans men, but trans women can get prostate cancer because they still have their prostate.
Mhm.
What we don't know is this: if we treat you with a gender affirming hormones that are similar in function as the androgen deprivation therapy for prostate cancer, would that suppress the growth of the cancer? So that means that a lot of trans women may end up with advanced aggressive prostate cancer that's resistant to conventional treatment. So have you heard that before?
No, this is my first time.
Yeah. And then if we
And
sort
the medicine that you treat prostate cancer with
Mhm.
could make the cancer worse.
No, see the medicine that they're gender affirming hormones. So
What's a gender affirming hormone? Talk to me like
so
I'm.
say for example, estrogen like hormones. So if you were born at birth, you were classified as a male. Why? And you're transitioning into being a woman, you will receive hormones, estrogen
Mhm.
hormones that help you transition.
Mhm.
Now, if you have prostate cancer, and so the estrogen block the testosterone.
Right.
Okay. The flip side, if you have prostate cancer, your treatment options the are compounds that block your testosterone. So if you overload your body with estrogens, overload your body as so a cis individual overloads their body with estrogens, and that prostate that testosterone level is dropped, and you start to transition in. But the problem is when you have prostate cancer, it's a similar mechanism that's used to treat the cancer so it doesn't grow. You want to shut down the effect of testosterone. And so what happens is when you have trans women um, who they still retain their prostate, but nobody talks about that. So if you're Black, if you have African ancestry, you're at risk at prostate cancer. So that means you should be talking about prostate cancer at age 40. But there are people who transition out, transition over, and become women
And I've never heard about this
and never heard about it.
and still
And
have.
so I just want to make sure I'm following Dr. Crawford because I'm like, Ricky, talk to me like I'm 5. So what I'm hearing you say is that in the LGBTQ community, with regard to trans women, when they're transitioning and they maintain their prostate, they're at a higher risk for prostate cancer, but because they're now being viewed as women, nobody's talking about the fact that they're at a higher risk.
To take it back, if you are of African ancestry, you're at high risk.
For prostate
Just
cancer.
from the jump.
Just
Yeah, from the jump. So
give me those numbers. What is it?
What
Black men are twice as likely to get prostate cancer than white men. Like what's that?
well, the numbers, just the general, this is interesting. The general numbers are 71% higher incidence rate over the general population. Okay.
71% higher incidence rate. Jesus Christ.
And
right.
then over 2 times the death rate over the general population. So that's what you're starting with as a Black individual. Now,
and then you add hormones to it.
then you add hormones to it. And so of the transgender population, trans would be trans women population, there's still going to be 1 in 6 should develop prostate cancer. But that 1 in 6, no one's talking to.
Mm.
You see? And then everything is okay, everything's okay. And how do you take our test is the PSA, prostate specific antigen. And it basically gives people a general idea if where the cancer is. Is it coming back? That's what you measure. But if you're taking hormones that suppress the production of that, you may never know if the cancer is coming back.
So, all
So
right, so let me add another wrinkle to this. If you're taking estrogen, could that increase the risk for breast cancer?
now the point is, let's take it a step further. We talked about African ancestry. Okay. We talk about 10% of the breast cancer cases out there are men.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's because nobody talks about that right now. So we won't answer
Right.
the general population.
Absolutely.
Nobody, I don't hear anything about men. So that's the gimmick. Nobody talks about it. So now what's interesting is that population is always going to be there. But and this is why we don't have a lot of information about the genetics. But everything, when it comes to our information about BRCA, so BRCA mutation is BR, breast, CA, cancer, gene 1 and 2. And so if you have that gene, your chances of developing a cancer increases.
Yeah. It
So,
reverses from 1 in 8 to 8. Right?
so
Yeah.
now, yes, there is that no one knows because they haven't studied it. What's the incidence of, is there an increased incidence of men having breast cancer who are now
Transition.
transition?
Mhm. And we just don't know because nobody's talking about it.
Nobody's talking about it. Like nobody, and you're so, think about all the things. Look at what you went through just to get to your freedom. So what happens if you now want to transition? And what are you thinking about? All the physical changes that are happening to your body, right? All the emotional crap that you're dealing with.
That's emotional. And see, you had, and I'm not just saying you, but you were able to find your purpose and find a partner. But transgender people don't.
Right.
So they're kind of
Right.
out there by themselves.
And nobody's
How
talking.
you know how you felt when you made the statement about how your mom, I don't know if it's initially or your initial interaction with your mom, how she felt and what she was saying. That's what they're going through. But then they had to find someone. And so it's very difficult for them. And that's why that the whole concept is unapologetically you. That's all we want you to do is you just need to be you. Find your purpose. And let us do our very best to educate you. Because
So
what we're talking about, what we're talking about here is you didn't hear it in the news, right?
Mm-mm.
And so it's just one of those things. It's on the darker side. Nobody really talks about. I mean, I'm working with the clinical trial. This is the first clinical trial that I work with. And this clinical trial specifically includes states transgender individuals are welcome.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So
Have you ever been experienced discrimination with the medical community because of being gay?
I actually have not. And I think that because I present as feminine, nobody really knows until I tell them, right? Unless I have my wife with me. And in the times when I've had my wife with me, I haven't ever noticed being discriminated against. Actually, they seem to welcome her into the conversation. So we've been
Even in
very
Texas,
fortunate.
that's pretty awesome because you
Right. We've been very fortunate and very blessed that we haven't had, not in the medical industry, anyone treat us any differently.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, I just went with her yesterday for a procedure, and being introduced as her wife was different because she's healthy as a horse. The girl never has to go to the doctor or anything. So being on that side as now the caregiver and being introduced as her spouse, you kind of brace yourself because you don't know what you're going to get, right? But
Right.
everybody was very welcoming.
Right.
That's it. And that's it's hard as a cis individual even kind of comment in the space. But what I can say is that the trans population, they're alone because there's not a lot of them, and
That are,
and
have partners,
out
have
there.
men.
So what can we do?
Yeah, what can we do? What can we do?
Well,
Like this,
well, well, what
we
we
have
need,
number like 71%, risk and
I mean, what we need to do is kind of understand, you have a population, and in that population, you have a population that is at the marginalized. So they're double marginalized. They're trans, and in that population, then Black. So they need to be, people need to reach out to them. I mean, in the LGBTQ community, there is the trans community, but who's reaching out to them? Who's
Right.
educating? Because there's a whole bunch of talk about breast cancer
Mhm.
in the lesbian community, but then in the transgender community, who's talking about that?
yeah, and I would disagree with you because I know, Mo, and I've done some, kind of counseling and educating the lesbian community, and I don't believe there's a lot of education about breasts. I mean, you can help me out with that, Dee, but we still think people are in the dark on what their risks are because they're not talking to their mamas. They're not necessarily going to get guidance.
I'm not. I see that's the kind of the general population for blacks in general, black women in general, because
Yeah.
that was why your program with your interns was so valuable, because these interns go back and home and
And
educate.
talk to their mamas, yeah.
So that's the black. There you go, the upper levels. This is what's happening in black culture. Then you throw in the religious component, right? So you
Mhm.
can't. Then it's like you can't talk about it, but they're not talking about it. Then you have a whole issue about prostate cancer, which nobody even talks about. And then how do you talk about prostate cancer, and then people are still caught up concerned about you being you being unapologetically you, instead of worried about your health
Yep.
and making sure you're aware of it, because
Absolutely.
they can't get past just your phenotype, how do you classify yourself versus
Yeah, they want to put you in a box first. They want to put you in a box before they even deal with you. What boxes do you check? Are you Black? Are you white? Are you gay? Are you lesbian? Or you like that? I need to know what box I'm gonna put you in before I help you. And I think that that's sad. To Dr. Crawford's point, you have a human in front of you.
That's right.
That's what you have.
And we
Somebody.
and
Go ahead.
biblically we're not supposed to judge, are we?
A human that's sick, that has cancer, you know what I mean? Like, or just even has a risk for cancer that they don't even know about.
The point is that you can't get to the cancer if you can't get to the person. If you don't see the person,
Exactly. And
the person's invisible, then you don't even get there. You can't even have a dialogue.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to say that if you can't have a dialogue, then you can't understand. You can't understand. We rattle off terms, LGBTQ, IA, and it's grouped together, but lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and even an ally is part of the group. So there's so many things going on. It's separating them and really being compassionate for each of the different categories of people.
Absolutely.
And it's not a rainbow, really. It's really supposed to be intersectionality of all these people, instead of a rainbow, because the rainbows don't cross. They don't intersect. They're not woven together as a unit. And so the same things that happens in the general population, racism, bias, same thing happens in the LGBTQ community.
Agreed.
Just elevated, yeah.
Agreed.
And all we can do is make sure we do something like today. Because in the United States, today, at the end of this month, would you have heard anyone talk about what we talked about today?
No.
There's a parade, there's exciting, and we want people to be happy about who they are, unapologetically happy about who they are. But then when that month is gone, well, what happens to the other 11 months of the year? What happens to that trans individual? What happens to any person that has a gender identity or that's different than the general population or cis population? What happens to them?
Well,
We
where
don't
can
know.
people go? Like, I mean, even when you were, contemplating, your situation and coming out, like, did you have any place you could go?
No.
You know, Dr. Candace actually is coming into the call. I mean, she must be watching and wants to come in. Ah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, Ricky, no. I am the epitome of she needed a hero, so that's who she became, right? Like there was nobody to follow. There was nobody to say, here's the blueprint. There was nobody to say, when you do this, you're gonna be okay,
Right.
right? Like I really had to just step out on faith.
And so,
Right.
but respectfully,
Oh.
that you had a larger community within inside the Houston area that you could step out on faith.
I didn't know that though.
Okay.
Like I didn't look into the support that could have been there for me. Because again, to your point, who's talking about it, right? Nobody's saying, hey, D, here's a group over here. I definitely wasn't getting it from the church. The church wasn't saying, here's a group over here that can help you through this process. And so I didn't know anybody else who had gone through coming out and being their authentic self to even lean on. Like I was it.
Yeah, you had yourself
I had myself.
and you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Candace, you coming in? I didn't know she was coming over, but she didn't come on, but,
And so,
Dr. are you here?
There she
Hey.
is.
Hi, so sorry.
yeah, because that whole issue is if an individual, there are people out there that want to have that discussion and want to understand. And the question is, there's a sensitivity. Are you saying something wrong?
Yeah,
And so what I took a step further was I created a template or a educational module with us that outlines the key terms. And so of the LGBTQ community. And then so we can understand what's the history behind it. This is not something that's new. It's just historically it's always been there. Native American culture, Roman, all the differences in sexuality have always been out there. It just didn't all of a sudden crop up. But the issue was how do we talk about it without hurting someone's feelings?
Mhm.
And then because have to first say, I may say something incorrectly, but I respect you. And then correct me if I'm saying something wrong or inappropriate. Now, this is not something, I know a man who was 80 and he said, what are you colored boys doing? And so he said it that way. He wasn't mean spirited. He was just an 80-year-old man who didn't know what the appropriate term to use.
Right.
And so I have to upfront ask for, be patient with me, teach me, so we can have
Yeah.
this dialogue so we can get past the uncomfortableness.
And
So you-
talk about the things that matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So where can we find the educational module you put together that educates the general population on the key terms?
I mean,
I done took over, my
I
bad,
could,
I'm just,
I could send it to Ricky. Ricky, you can
Yeah,
look
we'll
at
put it out there. If we send to me, we'll put it out there.
And then
Um,
it's just here's some traits. This is how what the terms are, a little background information, and even when we talk about, inclusivity in the indigenous societies, they still had a two-spirit tradition. So it's there in our society. Historically, whether you go back to Europe, it was always there. Rome, Greece, there was always there. The problem is that we just need to talk about it and understand it. We need to get past, what you look like, because that's we've always been in that situation where what you look like, whether or not it's Caucasian or people European ancestry versus African ancestry, whether it's light skinned or straight hair, good hair. Everybody's looking for differences so they can either feel better about themselves.
feel
And
better, feel the best. I mean, we want people to feel the best about themselves. I mean, being unapologetically you, meaning, you're a badass.
Mhm.
Right, that,
that's it. And then
Right.
come to us, and then I have to come out. I'm not asking for you to come to me. I have to come to you. And then I have to talk to you and say, and the first thing I'm gonna say is, please forgive me if I say something wrong or out of context. But I'm coming here genuinely because my responsibility is make sure you have good health. You're aware of the cancer and talk about things that you've never heard before. How is it?
and then also, we have to do that with the voice of trust. I
Right.
mean, if you think about it, Keith, it's how we talk about clinical trials.
Mhm.
And people listen to us about clinical trials because we are blesties.
And if
Yes.
people are listening right now, it's called prostate cancer. It's Libertas. It's
Yeah, so that's why you have to keep talking, and we all have to just keep talking to our communities and saying, and meeting them where they are, like, we're going to the Fest in New York on Sunday, but that's probably not the right place to talk about this. You know what I mean? I mean, clearly, we're gonna show a presence and
But-
show that
but
we
it-
support.
But to your point, I think everywhere is the right place to talk about it, right?
but
Because
we have to find, can we find,
Right,
can we identify those groups who we can go to? Because I don't have, and if somebody's online and they can drop some organizations into the chat, I don't have anyone
yeah,
that I can go to and say, look, this is a problem. I mean, I'm identifying the problem. I'm talking about the problem, but I can't tell anybody that this problem truly exists.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there are organizations out there. I'll be in contact with the organization, and I can make myself available to talk about prostate cancer, just like Ricky will make herself available to talk about breast cancer. It's just we're a few who are doing, and I don't mind. Heavy lifting is good for you, but we gotta lift, because if we didn't lift, who was going to do it? And I bet you there hasn't been a discussion online, on TV, all the shows about Black, trans women and prostate cancer.
This is my first time even being made aware, Dr. Crawford. Like, it's my first time even being made aware. It wasn't in my sphere, right? So thank you for educating and just thundering over here, educating and enlightening me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And then it's one person at a time, and we'll do our very best. And just,
Yeah.
I always say, remember that we were, we have that, you said tapped on the shoulder, because
Mhm.
we've been tapped on the shoulder. And so we didn't turn around and hide. We then have a responsibility given to us to
Yeah,
do our very best to help as many people as we possibly can.
Absolutely.
so we need to do that, and Dee, can you help us? I think we need to
Of
do,
course.
have another conversation and have some, you know, part of some trans community members with us
Absolutely.
to talk
Let's
about
do
it.
it.
And bring this to the table, to the top of the, you know, top of
Because
the list of
that's
things.
it.
that should be
And we can
looked
put that
at.
out there and they have the ability to send it to their community.
Yeah,
We'll do it. Because we still didn't even talk about the whole concept of can a trans man get prostate cancer? Not a trans woman, but a trans man. So a woman transitioning into a man,
Mhm.
there's the potential of getting prostate cancer
Really?
because she has a remnant tissue. Because remember, you're switching from a environment that was dominant on primarily estrogen based to a testosterone based environment. And so anatomically, you know, from the beginning, we didn't start dividing up into different reproductive roles, positions until
Okay.
you didn't start out. We started out the same, and then over because of the physiology, we kind of divided up. Things disappeared
Yep.
or came in. And so what you have is there are tissues that are remnant. And if exposed at high concentrations of testosterone, you could drive that tissue into a cancerous state, an adenoma.
wow,
You see? And we don't talk about it, we don't know about it. And then the groups at B, the larger research organizations are more and more talking about just the trans women component of prostate cancer. They haven't addressed even the possibility of a trans man
trans
developing
men. Yeah.
prostate cancer because
Wow.
of exposed
Wow.
testosterone.
Wow. We're seeing some good response in the chat from Timothy and Nicole, and you guys shared this episode. I think we all need to share this episode with people that
Absolutely.
know that could be at risk here. And you know, I don't want anybody to have cancer. I don't want anybody to get breast cancer. I don't want anybody to get prostate cancer, but we have to change we have to get to mortality rate parity. Because our Black people are dying, and you know, and part of it is awareness, and part of it is just talking about it, part of it is just not hiding it, putting it on the table with your family like Dee did, putting it out there, saying, being your unapologetically self,
And then
being who you are, and then you can deal with all these other things that are affecting your life or could affect your health.
because you're not going to, this is a no judgment zone here. Okay. And
Yeah.
so our objective is to make sure you're educated, you understand, you have a point of contact, no, a reliable, trusted point of contact
Yeah,
Absolutely.
to come to and talk about topics that you never heard before. And so that is so, so important. Topics that you've never heard before in our community.
Yeah. Like today's topic. This was very educational. Like, seriously, Dr. Crawford, thank you.
But thank you for, sharing
yeah,
your story with you, which is important because people need to hear that. There are people online who will be in a position to find purpose.
and you found yours, girl.
Mhm.
Yes,
And you said it was never too late.
it's not. It's never too late. It's
It's never-
never, ever too late. I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who's starting over and he's 90. He is 90 years old and he's taking the stage and speaking to people who are aging about aging gracefully, right? He's starting this at 90. And there is somebody watching this right now that's 42 thinking she's too old or he's too
Right.
old.
Mm.
It's never too late. It really
It's
isn't.
never too late.
And I think that you have to, like, you know, when that bug hits you, you have to just take it and run with it and
Absolutely.
find your truth, find your peace. And I think you know, well, Dee, how can people reach you so you can help them get a strategy? I can't.
So you can reach me at my website, dmanuelcloud.com. Manuel is with an E. So it's DeeManuelCloud.com, dmanuelcloud.com. You can reach me on my website, book an appointment to let's just have a conversation. I call it my breast cancer bounce back, right? Where we're really going to look at where you can step into your purpose, right? And I believe we're all purpose. And I believe that every last one of us walking this earth, everybody has a story. And everybody's story is powerful. And it's up to us to tell those stories and get them out there, because your story is someone else's survival guide.
Yeah. I love that. Say that again.
Your story
Your story.
is someone else's survival guide.
So many great nuggets today. Your story, I'm typing fast as I can, is someone else's survival guide. So true, right?
And disparities exist in the LGBT community.
Mhm.
And then depending on who you are in the community, you may be completely alone
Mhm.
without support. And our objective is to change that.
This makes me want to do something. So Ricky, we got to do another show. I love it. And we
Yeah.
want to talk,
We need to do another show. Yes.
we want to talk prostate cancer in the trans community, right? I would love to be able to just find transgender individuals and bring them on. That's going to be my mission, Ricky. I'm on
That's
the
your
hunt.
mission. That's your project. You bring them, you
Because
tell them when.
if there's a national organization, because even what I'm talking about right now, if you have cancer, between Ricky and I, we can help you find a clinical trial if
Yes.
there's available for your diagnosis, and we'll assist you to navigate the clinical trials. Oh, that because it's interesting. What are we? The top 25?
Well, yeah, you know what, Dee, we just got this cool award that Keith and I are in the top 25
Clinical.
people advancing clinical trial research or something like that.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Hey, congratulations.
I know, it's pretty cool. So that was a pretty cool honor from people we don't even know. So that's a pretty cool honor, but we are, you know, we really are trying to get people in trials. And so
Because that's when they're going to get their best care. And sorry for interrupting, Rick.
yeah,
You're going to get your best care in a clinical trial.
you really are. You really are, whatever, especially if you're Black, and especially if you're from a smaller minority community, you're going to get your best care. You really are. We actually, so June is Touch's 4th birthday, the month of June, and we really haven't been celebrating it because, you know, I celebrate every day. I dance every day, but whatever. But the one thing I did look at was we've done actually 216 episodes of The Doctor Is In the past 4 years. And I kind of took like a pretty calculated guesstimate that we've now had 1,050,000 views of our show. So
Okay. Congratulations. That's why
pretty
you,
cool.
where are you right now?
I'm in Jamaica because
Okay.
I need.
I just wanted everybody to know, happy birthday, Touch.
Happy birthday. My
get to
birthday,
go-
it's Touch's birthday, but we need a little brain rest. That's all. Just for a minute. I'll be back.
Back.
You deserve it. You
You're not
deserve
back.
the rest.
So, but Ricky can do this anywhere in the world.
That's true.
That's it. So
We've done the show everywhere, man,
I
everywhere.
don't think Ricky has ever been in the same place twice when I've talked to her. I think I've seen you in your office maybe twice, but you're always on the go. So you deserve this rest.
Somewhere, yeah, but I will be back home soon, but
but you know what's interesting is that we rest because this is a purpose.
oh
Our
my God,
purpose.
job.
And
Yeah.
so it's not really work.
It's not real work.
Because when you hear when you hear a person who their doctors, healthcare providers say you have stage 4 disease, and they're going home and getting their affairs in order, and we say, wait a second,
Wait a minute, hold on.
hey, hold on, hey, this is the 21st century. This is not the
Right.
20th century.
Right, no, we're gonna find you a
21st
trial,
century.
we're gonna get you some meds, you
And
know,
then
no, it's not the
why is that
answer.
important? That's why it's important, because if somebody would have said you had cancer, and then all of a sudden, well, she doesn't have long to live, then you get depressed. But you didn't get depressed. How many years? I just want the audience to recognize how many years after your original diagnosis are you?
16.
16.
Oh, 19 from the original one, 16 from the second one.
See that? You see what I'm saying? So that means you can live.
Absolutely.
Right. And
I'm
that's,
on 12 from experimental drugs.
see that? And then that's why, what did you say? A cancer recovery strategist.
Yes.
Because there is a strategy to survive along this journey.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And it's not, here's what I believe is completely important from my experience. It's very important. What the food we're putting in our bodies, right?
Don't get him started
How
on.
Oh no, don't give us like don't
Okay. How
Ricky,
we're move, how
go ahead,
often
sorry.
we move our bodies,
Okay.
right? And our mental and emotional well-being.
See
I
that?
believe those are the 3 strategies that we need to look at to reduce the risk of recurrence.
So food, exercise, and spirit.
Yes.
Food, exercise, and spirit. And Carolyn Harvey's talking to us. She's 32 years out. You go, girl. She's a great advocate that we work
Yes, Carolyn.
and
Yeah.
you
And,
said
and,
doing great.
and something I want to say is we use all these statistics, and they said, you're in the median, you're in the middle, and then you
Right.
have a standard deviation and a second standard deviation. But these deviations that are smaller populations are those people who embraced that the doctors, your healthcare providers provide the cutting edge 21st century treatment. You control what you can control. That's exercise, that's your diet, and that's your spirit. Now, whether or not
Yes.
you're going to church or you're going to a therapist, but you have, because everything that we talk about play a role in allowing the cancer to escape. People don't recognize that if you
Absolutely.
brought it earlier, that stress, well, let me explain what the stress is. See,
Yeah.
the stress causes high cortisol levels.
Exactly.
High cortisol levels suppresses the immune system.
Yeah.
The immune system is suppressed, then the cancer escapes.
Sickness and disease. And if it ain't cancer, it's high blood pressure. If it ain't high blood pressure, it's Crohn's. If it ain't Crohn's, it's sickness and disease,
Mhm.
right? So we could be here all night, but it's
See,
so
and
important.
there's one last point, the
Yeah.
point I want to bring up too, when you start talking about food. Think about this. We historically, because we were ancestors, our descendants are from Africa. If you go back 400 years, we were from a society that really was eating meat. And thousands of years, that's where our genetic pool came from. So it was always survival of the fittest. There wasn't in a witch doctor or health care professional at that time.
Yeah.
But the point was, is that that's where we came from. It's only when we started to migrate, move away from Africa as slaves, that mingling with people of European ancestry, because their diet was totally different. I mean, the reason you're drinking beer, because beer had a lot of energy in it. And it was a way of getting fluids in your body and energy. Where there's no breweries in Africa, so they may be there, but it's not something that was consistently part of our diet. Then you come here, then the level of obesity, what are they putting in their food, our foods? I mean, even something as simple as plastics. When we came up, what was it? Stouffer's and we put it in the oven, but we didn't have it in a microwave. We didn't have plastics in microwave that break down that you ingest. We didn't have children who were eating plastics as a child
Right,
from birth. No, there was a point in time where women who were pregnant were beautiful. Now you're not beautiful unless you wear some makeup or cosmetic, or you have stretch mark creams, which are chemicals that are microdoses of pesticides. So all this stuff, our bodies were not supposed to be exposed to.
Exposed
This is
to,
an
yeah.
artificial environment.
yeah. All right, we're on to like 40 more episodes, dudes, and we gotta go. But I know.
I'm trying to get up to that 2 million views.
I know, we're gonna get 2 million, we're gonna get 2 million,
Okay.
but yes, Timothy, you go walking. Dee, you're gonna find us some people, we're gonna do
Yes.
another show. And then Keith, we do need to do a show about food, so we'll plan that
Yeah.
for August, okay? We
Because
need
I
to,
love it.
it's
All right.
plant-based or at least
Yeah, whatever,
vegetarian.
we gotta talk about food and movement, but I'm
But-
going
Food
back
and
to
movement,
my
but
body.
I can't wait for this episode on
Okay, you tell me when you're
transgender
ready and we
transgender.
will put it on the books, okay?
I'm be on the hunt. I got it.
All
Okay.
right, all right.
But
Thank you.
you know the problem in Texas is hot, and every place is air conditioned, and and we're vitamin D deficient. So
Tell me about it. I just
Well,
had my
I'm gonna get a
levels
lot of
checked. My
vitamin C for y'all this week, so, but.
okay.
We're
Oh yeah,
jealous.
that's right. That's right.
We hope today, I'm doing Mo's line, we hope today's been real reliable and relatable, and we thank Black Doctor for the platform, we thank our sponsors, and I love you guys so much, thank you for coming today, and I hope we learned a lot, I think we have a lot to think about, and he's giving us some homework to do, and we will make it happen, and we'll
All
see you
right.
next on The Doctor Is
See you next
In.
time.
Bless you.
See, I have big fingers. So
Oh, you got the. I
You
can't
got
get mine to do that. I haven't
You got
updated.
You got it. All right, take care, you guys. Good
how'd you get
night.
those hearts coming out of your hands?
I know, that's a new thing, right, on Zoom? I don't know.
It's a new thing on Zoom, but mine didn't update.
Oh,
Didn't
see, okay,
do-
go that way. All right, ladies.
Good
All
night.
right.
All right, take it
Dr. Crawford,
easy.
it
and,
was
and
amazing to meet you.
it was amazing to meet you too. We're inspired by you. You keep it up. I like
right.
that strategy because that strategy. You have to have a strategy to survive.
Gotta have a strategy.
Work on your strategy, people. Take care.